Okay, now we're going to talk about something called the tragedy of the commons, which has to do with those common resource goods, those goods that are non-excludable but rival. So, like the fishing pond or the public lake where people are fishing, right? Um, so it's again when we have a common common resource good. That's why it's called tragedy of the commons, by the way. And so one of the sort of classic examples is cattle grazing on a common ground that is shared by all cattle farmers. So it's kind of like this public area for the cattle farmers to allow their cows to graze on. Okay, so thinking about that, the commons can easily sustain around 100 cattle. Now, suppose 100 farmers are each allowed to have one cow to freely graze in the commons. And there's one farmer that's thinking, well, what if I bring two of my cows? It's not really going to be that big of a deal, right? No one will really notice. It's just one extra cow. But what if all of the farmers are thinking that? Can the commons support 200 cattle? I don't know. It's starting to get crowded. I don't know when this ends. Let's see how long it goes. Yeah, but you see the problem here, right? If the farmers were disciplined or there was some way of regulating them so that they only brought 100 cattle, there'd be no problem. The commons can easily support 100 cows. But since it's non-excludable, and all these farmers have an incentive to bring more than one cow, since it's free grazing land, they bring more than what can be sustained. And what ultimately ends up happening is that the resource gets destroyed. And so this is what's called the tragedy of the commons. Right? They get destroyed even though that was not in anybody's best interest. And it strictly has to do with the non-excludability aspect, and as well as the rival aspect as well. Okay, so there's this example of a tragedy of the commons in South Park, peeing in the community pool, right? Well, if I'm the only one peeing in the pool, it's just a little bit of pee in tens of thousands of gallons. No one will notice, right? Oh, but what if everybody is thinking that exact same way, and so everybody's peeing in the pool? Well, then you have a problem, right? So I encourage you to find this clip or this episode and watch it for fun and think about the tragedy of the commons. So what are some of the problems with common property incentives? Well, it's kind of the opposite of the incentives for private property, right? With private property, there was the incentive to maintain and conserve, and find beneficial trades, right? Here we basically have the opposite, right? So with common property, there's an incentive to neglect, right? Why would you take care of the cow pasture as an individual farmer if all the other 99 farmers are just going to benefit from it and not take care of it? Why would you do that? You wouldn't. You'd just neglect it. And then, of course, we saw the incentive to overuse. Hey, it's free grazing land for my cattle, so I'm going to use as much as I can. This is actually the exact same issue with the toilet paper I was talking about earlier, right? When I'm in a public place with a roll of toilet paper in a public bathroom, that's basically a common resource good, right? Because it's non-excludable, it's a public restroom, but it is rival because any TP I use, nobody else can use, and I have to sadly admit that I'm a problem here with the public TP. And then, of course, there's the incentive to ignore others,